M1 here, that would have happened had Bob measured his qubit in some basis phi 1, even though he's not measuring on that basis. Right? It's just everything cancels out. All of the random rotations that are applied in the initial preparation get cancelled out by compensation for it in the measurement of basis that Bob is told to measure. So that C rotation he's told cancels out the randomized effect for the initial rotation and then implements the correct rotation. So Bob is sending Alice essentially the correct outcome for the computation. The main difference is that this random phase slip here means there's some random bit slip applied to its outcome. So actually it's encrypted with a one-time pass. The information he's getting back has that random, the information he's sending Alice from the measurement results essentially has random phase slips built into it. I'm not going to go through it, I'm not going to go through the proof, but it turns out you can prove not only that this gives you the right computation, but that the distribution of information he obtains from these qubits and from the classical angles is always maximally random. So essentially, the random phase slip has the effect of ensuring that no matter what qubit he sends to Bob, Alice sends to Bob, Bob will always perceive it to be the maximally mixed state, independent of everything else he receives in the protocol. So that qubit will always look completely random. Also, the measurement angle he's told will also be uniformly random out of the set of possible angles he could be asked for. And so this satisfies the first definition of blindness, and with much more work, it also satisfies the second, stronger composable security definition I mentioned, but it's really not trivial to show that. The other thing you can do is you can hide not just XY plane measurements, but you're also able to hide Z-basis measurements. And the way that's done is basically by noting that the measurement of a qubit in the Z-basis commutes with these control phase gates that are applied by Bob. So really, you could make the measurement before you ever send the qubits to Bob. So what happens if you measure a plus state in the Z-basis? Well, then the result is you're just going to be randomly sending Bob a 0 state or 1 state. So this gives you a way of hiding XY plane measurements and Z measurements. It's fairly involved, and well, so it's fairly involved, but it seems like it doesn't have very much overhead. Alice only needs to be able to prepare single qubit states and transmit them to Bob. So the overhead on Alice's side isn't all that much. On Bob's side, there's a more difficult task because he has to entangle the qubits, but Bob just doesn't have a universal quantum computer, so it's okay to put some of this overhead on him, or at least it seems okay to put this hassle of having to perform the entanglement on Bob's side. So this was implemented in an experiment. Stephanie did most of it under the supervision of Anton and Philip. Well, again, I was involved in this a little bit. This is Stephanie Barr, Anton Diner, and Philip Walter. So the basic idea is that there's some source for the client that prepares the initial state with these random rotations applied, and they're transmitted to the server. I included this 3D graphic because I know Christian loves these. So the client is preparing the state, but since the server, the random rotations are already in place, so the server has to do random rotations and then measurement. And this is able to implement more or less the protocol that was on the previous slide. So you can run this and you can show that actually, yes, it hides a lot of information. You can use tomography to work out exactly how much was in a particular run of the protocol. It turns out only about 0.18 bits of information were leaked, and that's basically due to imperfections in the way the states are prepared. But basically, this was used to demonstrate a 4-qubit computation, or rather a computation on a 2x2 cluster state, or 4 qubits in a row. So it was used in several different ways, but basically each of them had 4 qubits in the resource state. Well, I guess prior to that experiment being performed, actually a much simpler scheme was proposed for hiding quantum computation using measurement-based computation. So this was proposed by Tomiyuki Morme and Yusuke Uji, and the idea is actually very simple. So they say, well, maybe preparing single qubits isn't the easiest thing. Maybe it's easier to measure qubits than it is to prepare them. Now, I'm not sure if I agree with that, and it depends on the physical system, and there's a lot of caveats with that. But in this scenario, where you say, actually, the measurement is the easy thing, you can say, okay, let's let Alice do the measurement. So she's going to be able to rotate qubits and then measure them. And Bob is going to be the server. He's going to prepare the large entangled resource state necessary for arbitrary computation with some number of logical qubits and some maximum logical depth. So this can be just a regular cluster state, which is the main resource state that has been studied for this kind of thing. Well, not particularly in this context, but for encoding universal quantum computation. So the server just prepares the state and then feeds it 1 qubit at a time to the client. And the client just measures each qubit as it comes in, then decides the basis for the next measurement, and just waits for the next qubit to arrive from the server. And they proceed in this way until the entire resource state is measured. And again, it's easy to see that this has to be blind, because nothing is ever sent from the client to the server. Right? The only thing they have to reveal at the start is the dimensions of this cluster space. And those dimensions are just basically the number of logical qubits they want to use and the total logical depth of the circuit. So this is a very nice way of formulating quantum computation, and it's much simpler kind of protocol. In certain circumstances, it has certain advantages for the other type of protocol, and indeed you're able to create hybrid protocols that kind of combine the two. I'll say something about that in a little bit. Well, I'm going to say it here. So basically, with these ones where Alice is preparing qubits and sending them to Bob. So the first protocol I told you about, or the second one, where Alice is preparing single qubit states and sending them to Bob. Instead, you can prepare the states by making a measurement on half of a bell pair sent from Bob to Alice. So you can kind of interchange between the two. So you can use measurements on Alice's side to implement the first protocol as well if you have Bob preparing and sending bell pairs. And in certain circumstances, that can be a better option, particularly if there's likely to be high loss over the communications channel. Because if Alice is always waiting on qubits that come from Bob that are part of the resource state, and some of them just get lost, some of the photons get lost in the communications channel, then she's lost physical qubits from her quantum computation. On the other hand, if you're doing this kind of thing, Bob's preparing bell pairs, sending it to Alice is making a random measurement on it, and then telling Bob it succeeded. In that case, when some of the photons are lost, some of the qubits are lost, it's no big deal. They're just never included in the computation. So once you go through this, you establish enough single qubits shared with Bob where the other half of the bell pair has been measured out. Alice can say, now with those qubits, entangle them into this state, and everything else proceeds by classical communication. So there's not really any danger of loss with the communications channel. So this also yields the idea that maybe instead what you could do is you could make Alice completely classical. So Alice doesn't have any quantum capability at all, but instead she talks to two different servers. And so what would happen then is that the two servers would share a bunch of bell pairs, and Alice would instruct one of them to randomly measure out his half. And when I say randomly measure out his half of the bell pairs, I don't mean that he's told, make random measurements. Rather, Alice generates random measurements and tells him to make those measurements. And then the first server sends the results to Alice, and so now Alice knows the states that have been prepared on the remote server. And so she has the same resource state that would have happened if she participated in the protocol where she was directly sending the states herself. The nice thing about this is that it makes Alice completely classical. There is, however, quite a big cost to pay for that. And the cost you pay is that the two servers can never talk to each other. If they ever talk to each other and compare notes after the computation has been run, they can reveal what happened. And that's the same with a lot of the multi-server protocols. There's essentially no multi-server protocol that I'm aware of that maintains blindness indefinitely, if the two servers can ever talk at any point in the future. So that's a bit of difficulty, because you can think, well, if I only care about maintaining it for a certain amount of time, maybe I could use space-like separation or something like that, and I could hide it during the computation. But eventually they're going to be within each other's lifetimes, and you need to be able to deal with that. I mean, essentially, then you're going to lose blindness. So this gives some options. It gives us a way when we have a single quantum server, and the client has some minor quantum capability, maybe the ability to prepare single qubit states, or the ability to measure single qubit states, then we know we can do blind quantum computation. We'll also know if you have multiple servers and a completely classical client, then you're able to do blind quantum computation again. Also, the easiest case is where you have a quantum client and you have multiple servers, but then you can take your pick of the protocols. Right, so in all these three cases, it's possible to do blind quantum computation. However, the case that will be really, really interesting, since IBM has started hooking themselves to the internet, is whether it will be possible to have a single server and a completely classical client. So they don't have any ability to measure qubits, they don't have any ability to prepare qubits, they have no quantum powers at all, they just get to be able to do arithmetic on their classical computer. Say, well, in that case, is blind computation possible? And the answer is we don't know. There's been a bunch of papers about this, well, a few papers about this in recent years, suggesting that it's unlikely to be true, unlikely to be possible, that it would imply certain collapses in the polynomial hierarchy. So it seems unlikely. On the other hand, so there's some recent work from one of my students, Atul, and one of the postdocs in my group, Tomaso, along with Nick Managuchi, that uses some ways to actually hide non-trivial quantum computations that really cannot be distinguished after any amount of time. So you're hiding some set of quantum computations from the server. You're running one computation, and the server isn't able to distinguish it from some set of possible computations. Unfortunately, it's not the set of all possible computations on that number of qubits. Rather, it's some smaller set. And this is not ideal, because it means we can't arbitrarily choose the type of computations we would like to be able to encode, and it means that if the server has some prior knowledge that maybe you're just going to implement Rover's algorithm, or you're going to implement Shor's algorithm, and they're trying to decide between the two, it doesn't give you much security in that case. But nonetheless, it seems there's something you can do. And this relies on a very strange facet of measurement-based computation. So in measurement-based computation, what happens is you make the measurement on a single qubit, and then you need to decide how to make the next measurement. So when you try to make this next measurement, you need to account for the previous measurement results that have happened. And depending on the rule you use to make this correction, that's going to affect the computation. So here's an example. I've got a single qubit. I've got 4 qubits entangled in the square graph state. So it's only a 4-qubit state, and I'm going to label the qubits 1, 2, 3, 4, and they will always be measured in the order 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, Alice is going to choose her measurement angles. I'll put the first one beta for the second one gamma delta. And she's going to tell Bob to measure in the first angle first. So she's got Bob measure cubit 1. Bob measures cubit 1 in basis alpha, and he sends back some results to Alice. Now, Alice decides how to correct the next one based on which qubits she's choosing to be the input. So in this case, the inputs are marked by square qubits, and the outputs are marked by circular qubits with this little arrow on it. So in this case, the logical qubits are propagating from left to right, as I showed you on the earlier slide. But you can choose many ways to embed computations. In this case, you have an input here and an output here. So the qubit that's inputted here, it travels from 1 to 3 and then to 4, and it's outputted at 4. And the qubit that goes in at 2 also comes out as 2. So you can choose where you're going to place the input and output on this resource state. Under the restrictions of this fixed measurement order, that you're always going to measure 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order. And each one of these is going to give you a different way of updating your measurement angles. So what's going to happen is Alice is going to ask Bob to implement this. So Bob implements the measurements one by one, sending the results to Alice, and Alice computes the next measurement. And there's a really nice feature of this, which is that if the measurement angles that Bob has been told after the corrections have been made to them are alpha, beta, gamma, delta, then depending on where the inputs are and the outputs are, this corresponds to completely different quantum circuits. And they cannot be distinguished at all. So there's simply not enough information in the protocol to tell Bob how to find the input, where it is, and depending on, or where to find the output, and depending on where that output is, that dictates what the computation was. And they're completely distinct. This circuit is not equivalent to this circuit under any circuit identities. They're just fundamentally different units that are being applied. And it turns out, for this simple state, with 4, there were the 9 possibilities shown here. So you'll get the computation you actually implement will be indistinguishable from 8 other computations. But the particular 8 you get are somehow random. You don't really have control over which particular other 8 you're going to get. So there's some restrictions on that, but it does point to the fact that maybe it's possible to do some interesting things with a purely classical client, with purely classical communication with a single server. And if you count the number of possibilities as you increase the number of qubits in the resource state, it grows exponentially. So the log of the number of possible computations on something like this goes up as something like 1.388 times the number of qubits in this. And it turns out that when you combine that with the number of possible choices for angles, in a particular run of the computation, there's simply not enough bits sent from Bob to Alice to identify the computation, no matter how he tries to encode it. Or rather, from Alice to Bob, there's just not enough information in what's sent from Alice to Bob. There's just not enough bits to be able to uniquely pick out one of these computations. So, that kind of brings us towards the second thing I wanted to mention. So we're a bit running a bit later than I thought, so I'll be a bit quick on this talk. So the second application I wanted to talk about, second class protocols, relates to verifiable quantum computation. And you can say, what's the need for this, or what does it mean? The basic idea is that we have something that's claimed to be a quantum computer, and you have some user that wants to distinguish between whether it's performing the correct computation that they have specified, or whether it is basically some box full of magnets, or someone behaving maliciously and trying to convince them that it is indeed a quantum computer. Of course, I'm not ascribing these to any company or not. Okay, so there have been a number of protocols proposed for this based on blind quantum computation. There's several ways. The first idea was to use certain logical qubits within your computation as terms. So because the computation is hidden by blindness, you think, well, then the server doesn't know what operations are really being applied. So you could use some of the qubits prepared in certain known states that don't interact with the rest of the computation at all. And then you look at them at the end of the computation and you see how they've been disturbed. And so originally we proposed doing this in kind of the first paper where we were proposing this single qubit preparation scheme. And unfortunately we didn't prove it very well. And there's been subsequent work on that model by WorldNet, for example, who has quite a nice scheme for being able to hide quantum computation, essentially by having these trap states. Sometimes you're acting on a logical qubit, sometimes the server's acting on a logical qubit as part of the computation, sometimes it's a trap qubit. And at the end you're just detecting whether the trap qubit has been disturbed or not. And from that, you argue that, well, if they deviated in any way from the described protocol, they must be detected with some high probability. And hence, if they deviate, you're likely to catch them. You can put it another way, that's based on measurement-based computation. So rather than taking a single line, the idea is to take just a single qubit within the resource state. And what you do is essentially you ensure by the states you pass the server to entangle, that qubit will not become entangled with the rest of the computation. And the way you do that is by preparing the neighboring states in either 0 or 1, so that the control phase gates don't entangle them with their neighboring qubits. And as a result, you're left with this isolated qubit that's not connected with the rest of the computation at all. And it's being rotated to some angle in the xy plane, and essentially you're just asking Bob to measure it in that same angle. So you know what the result should be. You know to expect a 0 or 1 from Bob, and if you don't get it, you say, well, you've been interfering with the computation. And the argument then goes that, essentially, if Bob interferes with the computation in a way that's likely to change the outcome, then you're very, very likely to catch him. Now, that doesn't work when you've got a single prompt. You need to use a lot of different prompts. And if you want the chance to be exponentially small, then you need to use error correction, or you need to repeat the process many times. But still, it works very well. There's also another way to pose in this model where Alice is the one measuring qubits. So where the client is making measurements on qubits sent to the server. So in that case, it turns out that you can do tests based on measuring stabilizers. The stabilizers of the underlying graph space. So that was proposed by Hayashi and Murnay in 2000. Well, I guess it came out in 2015. I think it was on the archive before that. So this is quite a nice model as well in the case where Alice is making measurements rather than preparing states and sending them to the server. So this kind of prompt verification works in a very simple way. You just pick a random prompt in the resource state. So in this case, the resource state is taken to wrap around a cylinder rather than being rectangular. And you prepare all of the neighbors on the same row as the prompt and the row that it's connected to, and you prepare all of them in the Z basis, randomly 0 or 1. And that means that all of these CZs doing these don't actually perform an entangling operation at all. And the whole thing separates so that we have a single qubit prepared in the XY plane, sitting on its own, and we have this resource state that's just completely separate from it. So we have a product state of this prompt and of the resource state. So we do the computation on the resource state, and we use the prompt to detect whether Bob has cheated on that measurement or not. And because that's randomly placed, you can detect whether or not Bob has cheated independent of where he chooses to cheat, with some probability. And this can be amplified using various different techniques. Okay, and again, this was kind of experimentally implemented in the 4-qubit setup. So you have 4 qubits arranged either in a linear configuration or in various ways that support 2 logical qubits, and you can place the prompt in different places on this, different places in the space. Now, there were certain restrictions which meant that not all prompts were possible, and there were some issues with that. So not all possible attacks could be protected against. But by randomly doing prompt runs and randomly doing computation runs, it was possible to implement a verified computation. And in this case, the computation was chosen just to basically be a bell test. And the reason, well, one of the reasons for that is the exact prompts that we were able to do, given the limitations of that particular experimental setup. They detected all errors except for a particular correlated error that does not affect the outcome of the bell test, because you're always taking the parity of the outcome. So the correlation in the error gets cancelled out when you take the parity of the bell test. So that's just an example of it being implemented again, and similar experiments being done to implement, well, not for verification, but for the blind computation, to implement this kind of scheme where Alice is making measurements rather than doing preparation. And again, they're kind of with 4 photonic qubits. So that's kind of the state-of-the-art experimentally. The demonstration of all of these things have been basically all with 4 photonic qubits. Okay, I should mention that Zoe Garnov, Michael Denor, Neil Devan, and Urmila Mahadov have this protocol that uses quantum error correction as a way of ensuring verification. And it turns out that in their pursuit of verification, they also devise a blind computation protocol. So it's just naturally blind. So originally this came out from Arnaud Pador and Ivan in 2010. It was on the archive in 2009. And basically the client could prepare, the client had some finite-sized quantum computer, which they used to encode logical qubits into some random quantum error correction code. It's some variant of the polynomial code, which they send to the server, and then the server implements logical operations between them. And it turns out that this can be used to verify computation. So there's a subsequent paper going into this in a bit more detail, in which Urmila is included. It just came out last month, actually, so this is really quite new. And that can be used to verify that the computation has indeed been performed correctly, depending on whether or not the states remain in the code space of the error correction code. I want to finish off by basically mentioning the scenario of multiple servers again. So in this case, you care about verifying the computation, not about blindness. So a protocol was proposed, I guess many of you have seen this, from Ben Reichard, Volkander, and Nimesh Mazarani, that uses 2 entangled computers, 2 entangled provers, to prove the results of the quantum computation. So this came out in 2013, so actually not that long ago at all in Nature, where the basic idea is that the 2 provers share a large number of bell pairs, and then you have a completely classical client or a completely classical verifier that is giving them instructions on what measurements to do. And based on the results they're getting back, they decide whether or not to accept the computation, or whether or not you've proven that a particular problem has a particular solution. I should also mention that this is very similar, this builds on a lot of work that had gone on long before this in the self-testing literature in relation to cryptography, but also in relation to self-testing quantum computers. Now, it wasn't taking some of the previous work on self-testing quantum computation wasn't in this really extreme setting where you think the server might be cheating arbitrarily, but you make some extra assumptions on the ways in which it can cheat. But there was a lot of work on self-testing quantum computation, and also particularly on self-testing quantum correlations. So Mazarani has done a huge amount of work in this area, for example, where you're trying to verify that correlations shared between 2 parties are equivalent of some isometry to some idealized correlation.